Good evening and welcome to Woman. Tonight, more on money, the single woman and money. With me is Martha Yates. Martha has been a widow since 1970 when it became necessary for her to work for the first time to support her children. She is currently the editor of the Alumni Quarterly at Agnes Scott College in Atlanta, Georgia. Martha is the author of Coping, a survival manual for women alone. Welcome to Woman, Martha.
Thank you, Sandra.
Martha, how many women alone are there in the United States now?
There are 23 million of us. There are 10 million widows, 10 million single women, and 3 million divorced or separated women. And of those 23 million, 15 million of us are heads of our own households, responsible for more than 10 million children.
Those statistics are really incredible. They're very surprising.
I know.
Because I don't think the woman alone is that visible in our society, do you?
No, but when you think about it, 23 million, we're a large minority, a tenth of the population, and not enough is being done for the women alone, and too many of the women become women alone with no warning and with no preparation.
Is it true? Now, I read some statistics recently, and we were discussing some earlier before the show. Is it true that there are more women heads of household in the United States than there are men?
As far as I can determine from the latest census figures, I believe that there are, and certainly the projections for 1990 show that there'll be more than twice as many women heads of households.
Well, how did we as a society get to be in this situation?
It's a new phenomenon. It happened so rapidly that people weren't prepared for it. For one thing, there are more widows now than there ever have been. Women are outliving men. There are more divorces now. There are as many divorces per year as there are marriages. And today, single women can leave their fathers' homes without going to their husbands' homes. They can leave and establish homes of their own. This is something that's never been done before. This is a new generation doing it. So you have women who are heads of households, who are responsible for themselves. The divorcees and the widows are responsible for their children. And it's a situation for which they're not prepared. No one has raised them in the second and third grades saying, now someday you're going to be earning a living, someday you're going to be supporting your children. This is what you do.
And that's really the common denominator, isn't it? They all have to deal with money.
They all have to deal with money in one form or another.
What are some of the things that you think that women don't know about money? Some of the very common things?
The
management type things.
They don't know how to balance a checkbook. Some people, you've heard women say, oh, I don't know anything about it, as if it was something to be proud of. They know little or nothing about preparing an income tax or ways they can save on their income taxes. They don't know how to establish credit. They don't know simple things like when they start work, they can start right there when they fill out a W-4 form by saving money, by taking every deduction to which they're entitled. And there are several they can take that they're not even aware of. They don't know how to bank their money. They don't know how to spend their money. They don't know how to save their money. They don't know, most women get head over heels in debt. They don't know that there are limits there to which, or beyond which they shouldn't go. There's certain debt ceilings.
You don't think it's something inherent in the female character, this inability to manage money? You think it's just a lack of training?
It's a lack of training. Men are expected to know how to do these things. Most men balance the checkbook when they're married. They take care of the charge accounts, you know, the cartoons, the monthly balancing, you know, with the man having fits about the way his wife has spent the money. And there are some marriages, as in mine, I balanced the checkbook and I paid the bills and I knew when the insurance premiums were due. But that is a rarity, and I still didn't know what I should do to prepare for any time that I would be alone.
So that when you were widowed suddenly, you were a little bit better prepared.
I was a little bit better prepared in that I knew what insurance we had, what coverage we had. I knew I don't know how I knew to apply for Social Security. I knew how to pay the bills, and I knew which ones were due. But there were a lot of things I didn't know. I didn't know how to handle large sums of money, and every decision that I had made had been a joint decision, and you know, it really had not been my decision to make. So I was thrown into it as most women are, feet first with no preparation.
One of the things that I think that you point out in the book that's very important for women to know is that there are steps that you can take ahead of time.
That's right. Every woman,
no matter what the situation,
no matter
divorce,
what
widowhood,
right,
or whatever.
Right, should establish credit in her own name.
Let's talk in terms of single women who are not widowed or divorced. Let's talk about some things that they should be doing.
The first thing is to establish credit. Any woman, really, whether she's single, whether she's married, should establish credit in her own name. Single woman will have to have a job, as a single man would have to. There's no difference there, because you've got to have something to back it up if you're going to apply for credit. The easiest thing, it isn't easy, the best thing to do is to take out a loan. I advise this for married women too, to go to a bank and take out a small loan. And if a single woman is working, of course, she has her salary as collateral. If a married woman is not working, she could offer something as simple as her wedding ring for collateral.
Really, a bank would take a wedding ring?
Yes, they'd take it. Probably. They wouldn't. Probably they'd let her take a signature loan, but at least she could offer it. She does have one thing that belongs to her alone. Then when a woman applies for credit or for a bank loan, if she's married, she should refuse to have her husband's name on it.
Can you do that?
Application. Oh, yes.
I mean, in spite of the laws, sometimes it's very difficult to do.
Well, now, because of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act passed October the 28th in '75, you can't be denied credit if you have anything to back it up. If you have a job, of course, that's all right, but a woman who doesn't have a job has a harder problem to establish credit, but she cannot be denied credit because of her sex or because of her marital or non-marital status. So I would say, first of all, establish credit, whether you're married, whether you're single.
Now, you can't do that on the basis of taking out one loan. Do you do this repeatedly?
Do it repeatedly. Take out a small loan. Take out $50. Don't spend it. Put it in a savings account and let it accrue interest. Pay it right back and pay the interest on the loan with the interest that you've accrued in your savings account. Take out another one, a little bit bigger. Do the same thing. Get a good credit rating.
So about how many loans would you have to take out?
Probably not more than about 3 or 4 within the space of a year. But you're planning something, you're laying a foundation here for something that will last you for the rest of your life.
And then no matter what situation you're in, you'll have a credit rating that's your own.
You have your credit rating, right.
What about credit cards?
Credit cards in your own name with no cosigners.
Is it easy, do you think? I mean, we said a minute ago that the laws have changed and it's now easier.
It's easier.
But it's not still all right, is it?
No. In fact, 5 years after my husband's death, I could still get credit cards in his name, a whole lot easier than I could get them in mine.
You spoke a minute ago of the W-4 form, the withholding certificate, and you said there are things that women should know about that. And certainly women getting their first job or women getting their first job after a divorce or being widowed should know. Right.
First of all, you have your own personal exemption deduction that you can claim on this. Now, these are not the same things that you would be claiming on an income tax. This is just determining how much money would be kept out of each weekly paycheck. If a woman has children, she'd get an extra exemption there. If by any chance she has 2 jobs, then she has to be careful. She can't claim a double exemption there. If she's going to itemize on her income tax, then she gets another exemption there. So by the time you add them up, a woman could conceivably have 3 or 4 exemptions, and that makes a great deal of difference in the amount of money that's being withheld from her salary each week.
And normally you can use every penny.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, I like to have it right now instead of waiting. I want to make sure that I'm not going to have to pay any income tax in April. But after I see to that, then I'd like to get as much as I can for use right now.
Another thing that people say women don't consider, and that is the cost of credit.
Credit is expensive.
It's hard to think in terms of being a consumer when one walks into a bank. It really is.
And yet you're paying for that money. I mean, after all, they're letting you use it. But as I say, when you get a loan, as we were talking about establishing credit, you're going to have pay interest on it, and determined by the going rate at the time. And of course, the rates are going up now. Money's hard to borrow. and the length of time, you can spread it out for a long time, long period or a short period, then that would determine the interest. But you will have to pay for it, and some credit is very expensive. There'll be well.
Are there kinds to avoid?
I'd avoid the loan office on the corner. They can go as high as 42%. I'd be very careful. I'd shop around for credit exactly the way I'd shop around for a dress or a doctor or a lawyer.
One of the things, you know, the advice in the book is really terrific about planning ahead.
Thank you.
But one of the things that bothered me just a little bit, and I wonder if maybe someone hasn't mentioned this to you before, it seems a little cold-blooded to say to your husband, all right, we're going to make this arrangement because someday we may get a divorce, or someday you might die and leave me with great financial responsibilities.
I know, it may seem cold-blooded, and yet it isn't any more cold-blooded than to go and get insurance on your car. That doesn't say you're going to go and have an accident, but you're covered if you do. It's sensible, and I think any man who loves his wife will want to prepare for her future, take care of her future, and take care of the children's future. And it's so much easier to do it before anything happens. A woman is in no emotional state of mind to take care of things like that. There's enough emotional crisis after a divorce or a death to try to cope with without coping with the money problems too. So if those have been taken care of in advance, that's one less worry.
Talk about some of the things that one can take care of in advance when we're talking about divorce.
Divorce, you know, there are divorce riders you can have on insurance now.
No, I didn't know that.
And in effect, it says that in case of a divorce, there would be support for both, if necessary. It would be split. There would be support for the children and so forth. As you know, if a woman has been married to a man for 20 years before the divorce, when he starts receiving Social Security, or if he dies, she's entitled to Social Security as well.
Isn't there some move now to change that, to shorten it from 20 years?
I don't know. If there is, I would be in favor of it. But you know, so many divorces do occur after 20 years, you know, change of life or whatever. And women at that time who have spent 2 decades in a marriage, probably raising children, probably have not had a career, they need all the help they can get.
What about savings accounts and that kind of thing?
Savings accounts in any situation should be in both names. If possible, the titles of everything should be in the wife's name.
Is that a joint account?
No. You can say joint or co-owner. It's tricky. It depends on the institution. It depends on the state. For ease of stating it, I'd usually just say co-owner, but that can be tricky too.
But they don't mean the same thing, joint and co-owner.
They don't mean the same thing, and in many cases, a joint ownership will create income tax problems, very serious income tax problems, so that somebody can be taxed twice on the same amount. So the best advice is to go to each individual financial institution and find out the best way to do it. Now, in my case, I have a savings account, and I have the name of one of my sons on it. If anything happened to me, now it doesn't say and or. It has my name, and it has his name right beneath it. So either one can go and draw from it. If anything happened to me, he could go and take out the money, and there'd be no problem.
But if it says and or, that would not be the case?
That can enter into the estate, and that can mean tax problems. And the estate is certainly one thing that everyone should be aware of. We too frequently think of estates as applying to wealthy people, and that isn't true. If you're a single woman and have an apartment, you probably have furniture, clothes, books, records, so forth. Those are part of your estate.
And also those things add up to considerable amounts of money.
When you're talking about a husband and wife, they probably have a house, they have a car, they have furniture in the house, they have clothes. All of these things enter into the estate, and the ideal is to keep as much as possible out of the estate to avoid taxes. There's nothing illegitimate about that. The Internal Revenue Service advises it. their estate planning division can help anyone who needs help.
Let's talk about additional precautions for women who might become widows.
And any woman might, whether she's single, whether she's married. If she's single and ever expects to be married, and many women become widows 2 times, perhaps. You know, she'll lose her husband, marry again, and the next husband might die too. We are outliving them.
That's not something, though, it's easy to admit.
It isn't easy to admit, but it's something we have to face. Everybody thinks it can't happen to me. You know, everybody thinks we're going off into the sunset together, but it doesn't happen. Look at the statistics. We're outliving them. They're dying younger. Women are being left widows younger.
I wonder what we could do, you know, as a society to make women more conscious of the fact that they are probably going to have to take care of themselves.
I don't know. Programs like this.
Yes, but, you know,
educate them.
That's really not enough. I mean,
No.
I think you've got to learn on another level entirely.
I think that in elementary school, in high school, we have to start educating girls.
Maybe we have to stop telling women that the only thing they will be doing is staying home and raising children, when that's only part of their lives, really.
Well, with the feminist movement, I think we're finally coming to that. Women are realizing there are other options, other alternatives, and realizing that they will have to take care of themselves. But so many women who have spent their lives in a marriage then are faced with supporting themselves come to it late. The younger generation, I believe, thanks to the feminist movement, realize that they will probably spend some years by themselves before marriage, and probably after marriage will continue to have careers. But it's the women, say in their 40s and up, who married probably after college and who have been wives and mothers without an outside career, who are faced with these problems. Not that they're unique to these women.
Martha, did you work? I forgot.
I had never worked for a living before.
Never in your whole life?
No. When I was in college, I had summer jobs for spending money, but that's all. I never had worked for a living.
But you did really, though, because you helped your husband in his business.
Yes, but not for a salary.
Yeah.
I wasn't working for a living. That was fun. He was an architect, and I did publicity work for him. I wrote articles for him. I was a consultant, but that wasn't a job.
We've gotten a little off the track here. I started to ask you, what are the important things that a woman must do so that if she should become a widow?
The first thing I think any woman and man should do is sit down with their insurance and go over that. One of the most important things of all is to change the way the insurance is made, to whom it's made. Most insurance policies, of course, name the wife as the beneficiary. Seems reasonable. I was the beneficiary of my husband's insurance, but that's all wrong. The woman should be the owner of the policy, and that way it does not enter into the estate. It's hers outright. There are no problems with it at all. If they want to take a loan against the insurance, she signs the forms. If there are any dividends, it comes to her. But it's the one safe way to have amounts of money come to her that are tax-free. It's her money. It's on his life, but she's the owner of the policy. And when he dies, it's her money. There's no problem about it. And the ideal insurance to have is the kind that pays a lump sum. I'm opposed to family income policies.
Define family income policies.
We had one. In fact, half of my husband's insurance program was tied up in a family income policy, which sounded fantastic when he took it out, about 20 years before his death. The idea was that no matter what happened, I would always get a monthly income. That was great. The problem was, with inflation, with rising cost, with a growing family, the amount of money that I get now just about pays for a week's groceries, and yet there's no way I can get it changed, because there were minor children involved. I could have gotten the lump sum of the insurance and educated my children and so forth with no problems. So if anyone has a family income policy, I would advise that they have a cost of living clause written into it. Now the premiums will be steep, be very, very steep. but they can do it if that's what they'd like to do.
I forget where the figures came from, but we're told that we should have 7 times our annual income.
Yeah, that's what insurance companies recommend, that your insurance not exceed 7 times your annual income. I would advise that it be even higher, if possible, if it doesn't work a hardship. You've heard people talking about being insurance poor. That's because the payments do seem so much each month as they make them. But when you figure that that may be all that the woman has when her husband dies, then it isn't too much.
Had you and your husband made out a will?
Yes, that was one good thing.
So that was a very good thing.
The year before he died, as a matter of fact, we had our first wills drawn. And we did have the marital deduction written into it.
Now, I don't know what marital deduction is.
The Internal Revenue Service allows everyone a $60,000 exemption. In other words, if you have an estate of $70,000, $60,000 of that is exempt from tax. You'd be paying tax on $10,000. The marital deduction doubles that, so that you have $120,000 that's exempt from tax, and that really helps. And remember, when you're talking about the estate, every single thing is added into it. And if the insurance is made out to the wife as beneficiary, that enters into it too, you see. And that's where most of the money is, the house and the insurance. That's why I say take the insurance out of the estate with the wife named as owner.
Now, did you know to do that before you went to your lawyer?
No.
No. But you think people should, though?
Oh, yes, definitely. They should find out all of these things. They should do everything they can. As I said before, they can go to the estate planning division of the IRS and get help and find out. They'll tell you exactly what should be done, what shouldn't be done.
Isn't it also true that a woman who is alone, whether she's widowed, divorced, or whatever, should also have her own will if she's responsible for kids?
Definitely, because she has an estate. As we said earlier, a single woman, anyone, has an estate.
Shouldn't she also, is it in her husband's will that she should be appointed guardian of the children?
Various states have various laws. I'm a native of Georgia, and Georgia really has very lenient, very compassionate laws. But some states, unless it's stipulated in the husband's will that the wife is the guardian of the children, of the minor children, the court can appoint a guardian or can demand that she post bond to act as guardian, and that can run into money. So definitely the will should state that.
So 2 things you've told us about the will: the marital deduction clause and to have the wife appointed guardian.
Right. And of course, having things in the wife's name, the titles in the wife's name would help too. Those things don't even have to be named in the will, but those are the 2 main things in the will.
Filing income tax is a horrible experience for lots of women who've never done it before.
It is. Now, the IRS allows a widow with minor children to file what is in effect a joint return for 2 years after the husband's death. And this is a tremendous savings. And then if she can legitimately file as head of household, that's in another tax, lowers her tax rate there. So that's a big help. But women don't know about taxes. A lot of men don't know about taxes. They go to tax consultants and so forth and have them filled out. It isn't really all that difficult. I don't say it isn't complicated because there are tax laws on top of tax laws, but the basic income tax is not that complicated, and there again, the IRS will help. But every woman should know how to fill out her own income tax. She shouldn't plead ignorance about that any more than she should about checking accounts or credit or anything else.
I suppose if you're not in terrific emotional shape, it seems like just a huge mountainous job.
It is. It is, to keep records. But in anything that you do relating to money, you must keep records. And if a woman wants to claim head of household based on her dependent children, she's going to have to keep records anyway. And in a case of a divorcee with children, unless the divorce very carefully states who's going to be able to claim those children as dependents and therefore as exemptions on the income tax, there can be a lot of problems there. She'd have to prove it dollars and cents to see who's contributing the most to the children's upkeep. It's a very touchy thing. To answer your question earlier, what is the answer? Education. Knowing the facts, finding out as much as possible, not being frightened of them. And more universities and colleges are giving women's studies, are giving courses in these things. There are night classes being given on just exactly this thing, how to prepare your income tax, how to balance your checkbook.
Who can you trust? I mean, certainly if you take a course at a university, chances are you can trust the information you get there. But many women rely on husbands' friends and lawyers who are friends and that kind of thing.
Well, with the best will, no pun intended, but with the best will in the world, a lot of lawyers don't really know about these things. They can't be expected to know everything. They're specialists in the same way that doctors are. And a friend can give woefully inadequate advice through ignorance. The best thing to do, I think, would be to go to a financial consultant. There, you can pay them, or you can pay them any amount of money you wish. There are some connected with social agencies that do financial consultation for very reasonable fees based on income. You could go to your bank. They have an estate planning division. They have financial consultants. There would be a fee there. You can shop around and find a lawyer who knows what he's talking about and whose fee, as quoted in writing, would not be exorbitant.
Martha, we're out of time. I thank you very much for being here. The book is terrific. There's lots of really good advice. I've been talking to Martha Yates, author of Coping. Thank you for watching, and good night.